Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Slipstream Entrepreneurs podcast. My name's Rich Wharton. I am your host, along with my fabulous co-host, the one, the only, Hannah Brooks. Hannah,
How's it going?
I am great, thank you. How are
Good,
you?
good. Yeah, I'm all right. I'm feeling. What's the word today? I was going to go with. I'm feeling prominent today. Like I feel like just like focused. Like I've just going for it today. Like I've just got a plan and I'm like feeling it. So yeah, good. Thank you. Very
Yeah,
good.
you're all in today.
I am. I am.
All in. I love
I'll
that.
fizzle out about 3 o'clock and I'll need a nap. But
That's fine. That's day done. Like, that is day done. Well, talking about all in, we have got a very special guest on today who is certainly all in on his career. We have the one and only Jason Pribyl joining us, who is a very, very talented racing driver. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's awesome to be here. I've been watching you guys for a while, and it's finally my time to be on. So looking forward to this.
Your time to shine. I love that. And as you can probably tell, the switched on ones around will notice that you've not got a UK accent, Jason. Tell us a little bit about your story, your background, and where you are today.
Yeah, so I've been racing for 13 years now, which is just a crazy long time to think about the fact that I'm only 19. But yeah, so I started in 2011 racing kid karts, and which I don't think exist here. I think you guys call them cadets. But yeah, so essentially cadets 4-cycle, and spent about 10 years racing those, and then made the jump to cars when I was, I think the first time I drove a race car was when I was 13 at the Lucas Oil School of Racing, and then finally got a full season in at 15. I won my first championship and moved on to the next season where we were hoping to get to bigger things. Fortunately, had a few issues, but managed to get through, moved to a different series, and it's just been, kind of battling back from there. We've met a few people along the way who pointed me in the right direction, and those people have sent me, essentially they've sent me here to the UK to develop my driving skills and develop me as a person in general. So that brings us here.
Exciting journey. And where's home, Jason?
I'm from Chicago. I've lived there all my life, and I'm a Midwestern.
proud Midwestern.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And now you're all the way down in, what do you call it? It's not Bicester. What is it?
Oh gosh. I don't want to anger anyone today. We'll just call it Bicester for now. But
Fair enough.
Everyone who's listening knows, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you're here on your own. You've got no family. You are. Can I just ask, what is your day to day then? How do you get up? How do you get up in the morning? That's not what I meant. But what's your routine on a daily basis then?
Yeah, I've always tried to get up early in the morning, as early as I can. So that means 8:30, which isn't, crazy early. I remember back in high school, middle school, I was getting up at 6:30 every day, but I don't need to do that. So why would I do that? But I make a point to get cardio in every day. So I try to get to the gym, try to get out for a run, things like that. I try to go to the grocery store every day just to, give myself something to do. It's not, racing is a full-time job to some extent, but at the same time, there's lulls in the day, and you just I want to keep myself active as much as possible.
Yeah.
At least once a week, I'm on a simulator, getting some track time in, learning new tracks before I go out there and get it on the car. Like I said, gym, weightlifting, weight training, things like that. And then it's talking to people like you guys, trying to get my name out there, going to tracks pretty much every weekend, and, just meeting as many people as possible.
Yeah, amazing. That sounds, yeah. I think you're right. Getting up early is really important. Just for discipline as well. To know you get up and you've got that day ahead of you, rather than not having a plan of action of almost. It's kind of, I find it's really helpful. I know Rich does as well, so it kind of keeps us together a little bit. Yeah,
it's maintaining a schedule is the main thing for me. you don't want to, because you get up super early for race weekends and things like that, right? Like tomorrow I'm going to the track, going to Brands Hatch. I have to get up at 6 in the morning just to get to the track,
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be as different, so versus me waking up at 11 every day or 12 every day or just sleeping into till whenever, that's going to be a huge hit on my, mental fatigue. And
Yeah.
I want to keep that rhythm going no matter what, or at least as close to that rhythm as possible, because I'm not going to get up at 6:30 every day. And then, yeah, it's just, there's so many habits that you can get with, being awake for the full day. You keep your mentality sharp because you're up during the day. You're not staying up too late, because that really upsets your rhythm. It really upsets, everything about yourself. So, I just try to, keep that habit going, because it's important. Yeah.
Yeah,
Really
definitely.
interesting, actually. I mean, I like the fact that you talked about your physical routine, especially your training. And you've mentioned mentality and mindset quite a lot there. What do you do to really sharpen your mind? I know we talked about getting up early and not staying up late, getting to bed at a decent time, keeping those habits in place. But what else do you do to really sharpen your mind and work on your personal development?
I think one of the things that I like to focus on is just kind of, hone in my obsession with racing, in a sense, because throughout the day-to-day life, when you're outside of the car, you start to let your mind wander, which is all right. I like to visit different towns, different areas around England, because this is a new place. This is not just, this isn't just for me to be here racing. Obviously, that's what we're here to do, but this is for me to develop as a person, right? Not many people get the opportunity to go and live abroad, and I'm trying to seize that opportunity and develop my culture just as much as everything else. But once the race week comes, I I hone back in, right? I need to focus on being a driver. I need to focus on just everything racing. So once that comes, I have a Google Drive full of onboards, right? Even if it's not the same track, even if it's not anything else, I just start watching the video. And I just, it's just about picking out your mistakes, picking out the advantages, getting yourself in the mindset of, I want to be back in the car and I want to be driving, and I know what I did wrong last weekend. Let's fix it, because now I'm looking at this and I've already identified the issues. One interesting thing that I did for my first race, which I realized I had forgotten for Donington, was I watched Rush the night before my first race, and I just thought it was funny, but it helped so much because there's so much competition in that movie, and although it's super cinematic and whatnot, as a driver you really feel that. And I went out next day and won the race, and won the second race too, although I had a bit of an issue there. So getting yourself in the mindset and getting yourself in that mentality of nothing else but racing is, to me at least, very key to being a successful driver, and just throughout the weekend, throughout the season, things like that.
So tonight you'll be watching Rush.
Yes, most likely. Yeah. Something like that, Ford versus Ferrari, any racing movie. I don't want to get tired of them, but I've got a few in my list that's that'll get it sorted.
You should totally start a little series on that, like the films that you watch before a race. I'd read or watch that. That'd be great.
Yeah. I've been meaning to kind of get a bit more personality into some of my things. So, one of the things I struggle with a little bit is just tapping into my personal life and just giving the viewers a little bit more of me, especially this season where I'm not sharing my video on our YouTube channel, versus the past seasons where I'm fine showing qualifying race footage and whatnot. This is a little bit more serious, and so I'm not as comfortable doing that. So I want to upkeep the content in some way, and one of the things I've been planning on doing is just some sort of vlogging, some sort of sharing me, and giving a little insight, giving our channel a little bit more personality, and just giving myself a little bit more, not just a driver with a helmet on, not just a car, right? There's a person under there. So yeah.
Really powerful. I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I know Hannah for sure will be all over that because she's massive into personal branding. She's like an absolute guru in that sector. And I think, if you line all the racing drivers up together on race day, all wearing their helmet, all wearing their overalls, etc., and you just look at it and go, well, it's just a load of racing drivers. You don't know who that person is, but everyone is different underneath that helmet. Everyone is different underneath that suit. And that's the biggest thing that we're about, is that what makes you stand out from everyone else. And if it is something like vlogging, or other people find different things like better for them. Some people like podcasting, some people like speaking, vlogging, just creating content in general, whatever it is. Like, you've got to be you. And actually, you know what, people will find your life really, really interesting. And I know you might think, there's a lot of hours in the day I need to fill out here. I can't train in the gym all day. Like, I can take a chunk, but I need to fill it with other stuff. But actually, people will find that interesting. People, especially from back home as well, people will be like, what is Jason doing over in the UK? Like, how does he become this incredible racer? And I know he's won 2 races, but what's he doing to do that? And obviously don't give everyone your secrets. No, you just told everyone you watch Rush. Everyone's going to be watching Rush. But it's certainly an interesting concept. And, vlogging these days, especially with the TikTok, Instagram generation, it's definitely somewhere people will be interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. The one example I think of, right off the bat, not just Drive to Survive in general, but Liam Lawson is an example. He had started a YouTube channel not terribly long ago, only a few months ago, and right off the bat I ended up just in my recommended finding his first video, and immediately Liam didn't, he was no longer just the reserve driver of Red Bull. To me, all of a sudden he became this, he became somebody that I was like, okay, I can relate to him here and there, and he's got a life beyond just being a racing driver. And so that's sort of what kind of kicked it off for me, just starting up the idea, spinning it up in my head. Is just, I can do that same thing. And, I may not be as good at it at the moment, but, it will have a similar effect nonetheless. So, yeah, no, that's the direct effect that I see for sure.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. And I think, the amount of people who don't do these things is 97% of people. The 3% of the people are the people that you see. And, just doing it makes you stand out more than 97% of people. So action is better than no action in this instance. So I think just go for it and just have fun doing it. Like, I do lots of content from the podcast, and I absolutely love doing content. I love picking out things that I know people are going to find useful or inspirational or anything like that, and it just sharing that story with people, it just I'm not even my stories, but it makes me really happy to do that. And I think just sharing yourself going to the grocery store and from an American perspective, looking around an English grocery store would be so much fun. Loads of people would relate to that as well. Like, anyone who goes on holiday always goes to the grocery store and it's like, oh my god, have you seen this thing? And it's fun, so things like that are just great. Just great.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned that, because as an American, I hadn't even thought of that at the moment. It's just my dad, who's been great, he's been a huge help. He's pushed me to do things that I haven't wanted to do, and yet, we do them and they help. And, he's great influence on me for sure. And he's always asked me to do things like that. And I just look at him, I'm like, no one cares about that kind of stuff. But when I had first come here, I was exploring the grocery store, and at the time I was tired. I was just so out of it and just so overwhelmed by it all. And I didn't think of it as different until it had become normal to me.
Yeah.
So you just saying that is just, now that I think about it, yeah, they are very, very different. And I think people would find those very, very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because, it's weird to me, because before I had come here, You know, I hadn't left the continent of North America. I'd been to Canada once for a week, and since then I'd just been in the U.S. And so when my friends learned that I was moving to the UK and things like that, and they had asked me, "Well, have you ever been to Europe or anything like that?" And I was like, "No." And they're like, "Okay." Like, what's the difference? We speak the same language. You guys just have a different accent. You drive on the different side of the road. Like, there can't be that different, right? And yeah, and I'm getting used to it now. But it is just, I think when I go back home now, it's going to be completely different as well. So it's there's so much to just. My life has changed completely living here. My schedules, my way of life, just things like that, and they've all adapted to the way England works. And so I think that's that's a great thing to capture, because there's so much more to it than just just being here and racing, as we've talked about. Yeah,
I think that's brilliant, because from my point of view, especially, is that you coming from the US, you've got a US following. Now, you talking about stuff in the UK that is different, even going to, like I said, the grocery store and going, oh my God, look at everything here. Like, it's so much smaller than what it is in the US, or, whatever it is, like, just the differences, pointing out the standard differences that are there. Like, that's entertaining for not only people in the USA, but the people here. It's like, you look at comedians, stand-up comedians here in the UK, they point out the blatantly obvious stuff that people see day in, day out, and make a joke of it. Huge following, they're influencers in their own right. And that's exactly what you are, but you've got a great opportunity to be like, oh my God, this is the UK, and people in the UK will find it funny, the fact that you can notice those differences.
Yeah.
And that's your everyday to-day life. That's not including your racing stuff. The racing stuff you can get involved with as well. But it's just documenting that journey of, doing something different. And I think that will really bring out your personality and help you attract an audience, which is important, because at the end of the day, if you're approaching businesses, especially for sponsorship, they want to see numbers, they want to see statistics, they want to see the reach that you're getting. But more importantly, you can build that fan base that you can really sort of leverage off, which would be really, really useful. So I know Hannah's the expert in personal branding, but I thought I smashed it there, if I'm going to be honest.
You did, yeah. I'm really proud.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point about the numbers and statistics, because a lot of racing has changed nowadays with the way sponsorship works. And while, publicity and just the slap a sticker on the car for 50 grand, that doesn't happen really as much anymore. And although, to be fair, it never really worked that way, but it has in the past, right? It's like a billboard. That's what a race car is, right? The side of the race truck, same thing. But the numbers don't just mean publicity, right? They represent a capability and the responsibility that a driver has, and like I said, the capability of gaining an audience, attracting partners, attracting people, things like that. So having an audience, having a fan base means way more than just publicity. It does. It means, like I said, it represents the ability of a driver.
Yeah. 100%.
And knowing your fan base, I think that's even more important than knowing the numbers of your fan base, is actually knowing who your fan base is. Where do they come from, where they live. If you turn around to a UK brand who only sells in the UK and goes, please sponsor me, and they go, what's your following? And they go, yeah, it's all these people back in the USA. And it's like, well, that's not my audience then. But if you know your fan base, if you know, right, my audience is like in the USA, they're mainly males, females, they are of this sort of age group, they're and they're willing to buy, especially if they've got this amount of money or whatever it is, then you can tailor that to certain products or services. Whereas I know a lot of people just blanket email out and just put on their numbers, and people go, well, that's great having that amount of numbers, but how does that work? How does that correlate to me? And I think that's where it's partnerships really, really work well, is actually knowing who that target audience is, so the sponsor can really benefit from that.
Yeah. And that's the great thing about the stuff like YouTube and Instagram and TikTok statistics. Those numbers exist now. We have the age, the gender, we have everything we could possibly need when it comes to, your target audience and your fan base, and just, who your demographic is as a driver and as a marketing agent, pretty much. And so those statistics are great, and that's just another reason why you should continue to operate on those standards. Is just, it gives you those numbers for free, essentially. Yeah.
No, 100%, 100%. No, it's powerful. I love digging down deeper, especially into sponsorships. It's Hannah and I have these conversations all the time. We have conversations with drivers all the time as well. And it's nice to know that you're on that wavelength of going, actually, I need to know exactly who I need to look at the statistics. I need to work out how I'm going to engage with them. And actually just be that influencer that yes, you're a racing driver, but you are also an influencer, and you're trying to run your own life at the same time. You're trying to be a 19-year-old lad in the UK. It's a few hats to juggle. But when you sort of get on board with yourself and you know where you are and you know what you're all about, then I think that just makes life so much easier. But you mentioned your dad a little bit earlier. Tell us more about your family and what it's like for them with you being here in the UK.
Yeah, I think it's been, racing is a dynamic in my family, to say the least. My mom, spends a lot of time with my sister, and my dad spends a lot of time with me. There's a bit of crossover, but unfortunately, there's maybe not as much as we would like. But at the end of the day, everyone supports each other. And I feel that to some extent, my racing does take, it takes up a lot for my family, which is one of the reasons why I want to push myself so hard to succeed. Because my family has sacrificed so much for me to race, and then even more so with sending me to England. I know it's hard on not just my my direct family, but everyone else, right? My grandparents, my aunts, uncles, things like that. No one else lives in the UK. No one else lives in Europe. So they don't get to see my face. They don't get to talk to me. They don't get anything for who knows how long, right? So it's a significant, both just emotional and, I'll admit, a financial burden to send me here. And I admire that, right? And I am so grateful for not just my dad, who, works essentially 2 jobs, right? He works hard, on his day job. And then right after he's working, then he's, editing videos. He'll be talking to people. And it's, I do as much as I can. I've been a student for the past few years, and I'm finally, taking a gap semester, taking a bit of a break, because I just can't, now that I'm in the UK, it's about, focusing time. But, so I can take a little bit of weight off of my dad's shoulders for the time being. But, I'm lucky that everyone in my family supports my racing, because I don't think I would be here without him, for sure. Yeah.
Amazing. I love that. And I've met your dad, and he's just as passionate about this for you as you are about it. And it's, seeing that kind of family unit supporting you, and you knowing that they are there if you need them, and is really powerful. So yeah, it's a big credit to you.
And there's an interesting thing there that I've heard from a few people. So I have a manager now. And it's helpful for a number of reasons. One, because I'm in a new world, right? The world of UK racing is different from US. And so, he's helping me find the right people, talk to the right people. He's introducing me. He's, negotiating deals, things like that. And it's been helpful. my dad isn't here, and essentially he's acting as my father at the track and off the track. If I need anything, although strictly for racing. The other thing is that he had commented on how, it's worth me getting a manager, and how my dad is doing the right thing because he's just as passionate as I am, right? But he's staying out of the way. And that's not something you see with everybody, right? There are dads who are just as passionate, if not more passionate, about racing than their kids. And, they hover, they are obsessive about their driving, their life, and those things. And it's damaging a lot of times. And, he has seen it, my manager, Gary. And, you see it at the track, and you see it, outside of the track from other perspectives, and you just watch these drivers fall apart. And that's one of the things my dad has been great on. And it's something I took for granted for a while until I really started to see the toll it took on older drivers, and how I would have, felt the same way. Had I put myself in those shoes, I would have also just fallen apart completely. So while my dad is extremely supportive, he also, gives me the time and space that we need, to grow as a person and grow as a driver.
That's great. And it's a really good insight as well, from your perspective on that. And I think a lot of people will probably find a lot of use in that, I think. What do you think, Rich?
No, 100%. I think that's really, really powerful. I think more... It's difficult because you're so young as a racing driver as well, and to have that sort of mentality of like, actually, I need to have a manager rather than a father in this space. And I know a lot of dads try to do both as well. They try to be like, again, cost saving, because a manager isn't free. But the fact is like, look, I'll manage you and I'll be your dad. And it's like, actually, that's a real sort of crossover, which I'm not going to say it doesn't work, because for some people it does. But a lot of the time you see how challenging and damaging that can actually be. And I think a lot of racing drivers will have a much better career and have a lot more independent advice given to them if they went down that manager route and just decided, you know what, Dad, I know you're a great help to me. You've been a great help up to now, but be my dad, and I'll get a manager to do the racing stuff. Be my number one supporter, absolutely fine. Like, I'd love to have you there, but for my decision making and for my career growth as such, because at the end of the day, you wouldn't expect to go into a real life job and just tell myself, by the way, my dad's coming as well, just to make sure I'm doing everything correctly. Like, that wouldn't happen. So you're kind of in the same situation here, is that actually you're bringing someone alongside. You're treating it as your business, which I think is really important. You've got yourself an advisor, a mentor, someone who's there who can guide you along the way and actually support you in your journey and push you further forward, which maybe that parent can't do. And I think that's really, really powerful. So it's and credit on your dad's part as well. Like, obviously, I know he would have been a part of that decision of bringing a manager on, and I think it'd be quite difficult to let go as a father. And I'm sure there's times where he doesn't want to let go. But it's great to know that they're there, though, and be there supporting you and be in that fan base.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just, having a manager there, right? I'm a first generation driver. My dad had absolutely nothing to do with motorsports other than the fact that he went to a few car races in the US, right? He enjoyed watching racing and things like that, but we knew nothing about it, right? The way I got into a kart for the first time was he posted on a Facebook group if anyone was willing to lend their kart to try, let me drive it for a few laps, right? And somebody was nice enough to do that. And it kind of just snowballed from there, right? But we've made so many, I'll admit it, we've made terrible, terrible decisions in the past, right? Things that have burned us out for years, right? But the way I've found the best to describe it, right, is when you think about mathematics, right? We've gone very far in math, right? Even just from long division to, derivatives and stuff like that. But every person, when you look at the people that have made certain equations, in the past and how we've evolved on them, it's always gotten easier, right? I'm a university student now, but in high school I was learning derivatives and things like that, whereas mathematicians who were in their 50s were, just about learning them or just about discovering them. And it's the experience, right? It's that extra 50 years that we now have on our side, or that extra 100 years that we now have on our side, right? So the nice thing about having a manager is, he's had the opportunity to either make those mistakes or see people make those mistakes. Whereas who've been in racing for a measly, 13 years compared to his experience, he'll be able to send me the right direction because he knows where the mistakes are made, and he knows where, he knows how to make the right calls. He knows who to avoid. He knows who to, stick with. And that's the biggest thing, right, in racing, is to make sure that you're using your money and your time wisely. Because as a young driver, there is only so much of that. And I mean, that's been the key. That's been the focus this year and from here on out, really.
That's great. You've got such a wise head for like a 19-year-old. Like, and I hope that's a compliment, by the way. It's not meant to sound like not being rude. No, it's true. And I think you're right. Like, you get to a point where outsourcing to gain experience is actually huge. And when people start to realise that they don't have to learn everything and do everything on their own, you can outsource something, do it. Like, absolutely do it. And I really basic thing. I've now started outsourcing someone to clean my car, which sounds really basic and probably quite weird. But I'm terrible at cleaning my car. Like, I can never do it right. I just can't do it. It's awful. And it takes me the whole day. And that's a whole day that I've got, I lose, and it looks rubbish.
Yeah.
I've got a pro who comes and does it for like a £10, and he'll do it in an hour. And I get on really well with him. He'll come in and have a cup of tea, and, and I outsource it to him because I know he'll do a really good job, and I can gain experience from him. And he's often given me tips on things. And I just think it's so valuable just to do that if you can do it, because we don't have to be perfect at everything. Like, we can definitely get help from other people. So that's such a wise thing from you to say at such a young age. When I was your age, I thought, no, I need to do everything on my own. Like, we just did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I try to do as much as I can, right? Because there's certain things that I know I'm capable of doing, right? I know my skill set, and I know the limitations of myself, what I can and can't do, or at least what I can and can't learn. And, it's the same as, it's like having a consultant, right? You need a logo made. You could do it yourself, or you could hire a graphic designer. It's probably going to take you, a couple of days to learn Photoshop or, Acrobat, whatever, right? And you could hire a graphic designer to do it in a day. And it'll, it's not just about money, it's about time. It's everything, right? And time is obviously the most valuable thing. So, that's one of the key things there. Like you said, it takes you a whole day, and it doesn't even turn out as good as the guy who does it in an hour. So, yeah.
100%. It's funny, actually, I've listened to one of Stephen Bartlett's audiobooks, and he was talking about exactly the same thing. And he was saying, look, he charges up to 10 grand to do an hour's talk for people. He said he had a shelf that he needed to put up and in his office. Just a bookshelf, nothing major. And he said, look, it could take me up to an hour to do that, to find out where to drill the holes, do the right thing, put it all together, make sure to put it up. He said he could do it himself. He's got the skills, he's got the knowledge, he knows how to do it. He could go and do it himself and spend an hour doing it. Or he could spend that hour getting his next £10,000 gig. And it was just then like, why would I waste my time doing a task where I can easily outsource it? And yes, it will cost me money, for someone to come put it up, and someone will go, why can't you do it yourself? But actually, he's now leveraged his time. He's got someone to do a task that needs doing, but he's then got his time back to then go and do the money-making tasks. And at the end of the day, if you look at yourself as a racing driver, yeah, you might turn around and say, I've got a lot of time in the day to do stuff. When actually, when you dig down into what you've got to do and what is involved in racing, it's not just racing a car. It's the training, the physical, the mental training, the finding the sponsors, the engagement, the PR work, the marketing yourself, everything else that comes with jumping on podcasts with two amazing hosts. There's all these different sorts of things where you've got your time is now limited, and you've got to then leverage off that. So actually, I think it's really powerful what you said there, is having that manager to take off a lot of those tasks where you could learn and do it yourself. And like you said, you could get a lot of things wrong and then eventually get to the right decision. Actually, it's just bought you a whole load of time and just advanced your career massively.
Yeah, no, I can say right now that anything we would pay a manager, right? And we're in a really great program, but anything we pay the manager would save us money from here on out, because of the mistakes we've made have cost us way too much, right? Numbers I'm not even prepared to discuss. It's bad. And I've got friends that have, their careers are done because of that same mistake. And we were just lucky enough that we were able to pull out, or able to escape from those situations without, losing my career as a driver. So yeah, no, like you said, it's huge. There's so much to be gained from that kind of thing. And yeah, like you said, being a driver is so much more than just being a driver, right? It's more than just going out there and racing cars, especially the PR part. That kind of stuff, because it's not just about doing it. You have to be good at it, right? And that's tough for a lot of people, especially drivers, because most of us, all we want to do is drive race cars. And I'm guilty of that too, right? All I want to do is go fast, have fun, drive race cars, wheel to wheel, stuff like that. But at the same time, I know that being a driver, you have to commit to those things, and you can make them fun, you can make them enjoyable too. It's not the first thing you think of when you're a driver, but at the same time, once you get into that groove, once you find that rhythm, it does become, a part of your life, but a welcome one for sure. So that's why we're here doing these podcasts and talking to these two amazing hosts, because it's that kind of stuff that there's something new to be gained from all of it. Yeah.
No, absolutely. No, thank you for that as well. That's really really insightful. It's been amazing chatting with you as well, Jason. It's like Hannah said, you've got such a switched on mind for someone of your age, and especially as you've been, I was going to say sent. I think there's a little bit of actually you wanted to come here to become a race driver, but it's amazing that you've come over to the UK at the age of 19, or well, you came over at the age of 18, and you're now 19, and you're living this life of a racing driver, which is really exciting. But before we wrap up this episode, Jason, one question that we always finish on is, who would you like to spend an hour with, whether they're alive or dead? Who would you love to spend an hour with and gain a load of insights from them?
Yeah. So I'm glad to finally have an answer to this question that I feel confident about. We had talked about this before this started, and I'm totally set. I would love to spend an hour with Ayrton Senna. And it seems sort of like a basic answer, but I've actually gotten the chance to work with people who have personally worked with him. And because I'm racing Formula Ford, and I'm racing with people that, ran, the Works Van Diemen team when he was racing for Van Diemen. They're telling me stories about him. They're telling me things. He was obsessed with racing. Like you wouldn't believe the kinds of things. Like a story, I was out with my team owner, and he was telling me a story about Ayrton, how he would be on track and he could, this before we had, lap dials, things like that. He was counting the laps, right? And he would tell you, all right, my 7th lap was the fastest lap, then the 12th, then the 5th, And you look at the timing sheet, that they had the stopwatch because he doesn't have a timer in the car, and he's exactly right on every single one of them. And he would go every time to the track. He would run around the track, and he would, had a heart rate monitor on. He'd run the track, and he was fit. He was everything was about racing, and I just admire that to such an insane extent, right? Because that is just, that's pure. That's racing right there, and he could never stop talking about racing. And I don't think I could if I were with him. And I think I would be able to learn so much from him in that 1 hour of about racing, about being a driver, about on track and off track. There's so much to talk about. And I would just, there's nothing else to say, but I would love to have that experience and be able to talk to him. But
tell you what, being having the opportunity to talk to the 1% of the 1%, because you hear so many stories about him and his journey and what he did, and like you said, they don't have the luxury of all the cameras, even in the lower series of what you can access, the data you can access. They didn't have that back then, and so the way he trained was just beyond levels. And let's talk about the people who get to the top, and the reason why he got to the top was his dedication, his, like you said, obsession of being the best of the best. And you realize why he is such a popular figure within the racing world and outside in the sporting world in general. It is simply phenomenal. So I think that'd be a pretty good hour, if I'm going to be completely honest.
I think it would be. Yeah.
No, brilliant. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on this podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I'm sure we'll meet in person at some point at one of the tracks around the UK. It'd be great to meet you in person. But just for now, how can someone get hold of you? What's the best place to go to reach out to you?
Yeah, so we actually have a website that's probably our best access. It gives you all the links, but I'll go through them anyway. But so our website is jasonpribylautosports.com. And then from there, you can access our YouTube channel, which is just Jason Pribyl Autosports. We have a Facebook page, Jason Pribyl Autosports as well. And then I have my personal Instagram account, which is, I think it's jason.pribyl. And then there's, like I said, Facebook, Instagram, all Jason Pribyl Autosports, LinkedIn, Jason Pribyl Autosports. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Jason Pribyl. And I think we have a Twitter as well. Although we're not terribly active, we're getting better at it. And then, but yeah, no, the website has all the links. So I recommend you go there. And we have blog posts as well. So we talk about the race weekends. One of the nice things about my manager is he'll call my dad at the end of the weekend and kind of give him a rundown, because I'm not the best at that kind of stuff. Obviously, race weekend, I'm focused on things. So he will give my dad a rundown, and my dad can talk about the race weekend on the blog posts as well. So you get a bit of an insight as to, just a little bit more than just results and commentary.
Great.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much indeed. And thank you to all our listeners out there. It's an absolute pleasure to have you listening to this podcast. Please do subscribe to the channel, share it with friends and family. We do really appreciate the support that everyone gives us. And we absolutely love being able to spend time with the likes of Jason and the other entrepreneurs and racing drivers we managed to speak to. So thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for listening. Jason, thank you once again. Hannah, you are amazing. Thank you so much. And take care, everyone. See you next time.